eat books from cover to cover. Oh, yes, sir, I'm a real book lover. I get nutrition from science fiction. Paperback is a tasty snack. Literature was my favorite feed. That is until I learned to read. Now I read books from cover to cover. Oh, yes, ma'am, I'm a real book lover. I've been reading ever since I lost my horns of ignorance. Why don't you be a real book lover like me?
Here's a difficult question for you. If you had to move to a new place far, far away, and you could only take one book with you, which book would you take? Well, that was the situation that faced every character in today's book, The Green Book by Jill Peyton Walsh. Joe, Sarah, their little sister Patty, and their father, and about 50 other families had to be evacuated from Earth. Earth was dying, so everyone had to go to another planet in another solar system. The spaceship was small, so they couldn't take much with them. One tool, such as a hammer or a saw, a musical instrument, if it was small, some clothing, food, and one book. Joe decided that he would take Robinson Crusoe. Sarah took The Pony Club Rides Again. Father took a book on mechanics, and little Patty took an empty book, a little green book, more like a notebook or a diary. On the spaceship, they had plenty of food and water. They took along some chickens, some rabbits, some seed to plant, and the trip lasted 4 years. As they neared the planet they were moving to, they could see through the portholes that it was sort of red and a silvery gray. And when they landed, all they could see were rocks and sand.
We sat around, fidgeting, restless, talking together in lowered voices, waiting for dawn. None of the games interested us now. Patty couldn't sleep, though Father made her lie down on her bunk. The feeling of suspense, the unfamiliar rhythm of the machines running themselves toward shutdown, the altered pitch of the voices round her kept her awake so late, so long, that when dawn broke at last she was fast asleep and did not see it. But Sarah told her it had come like a dark curtain, being swept aside in a single rapid movement. For a few minutes there was a deep indigo light, and after that, brilliance. The guide walked around the ship, looking out of each porthole in turn. All that he could see was rocks, white and grey, rather glittery crags all very near the ship, blocking any distant view. They gave Arthur a breathing mask and put him through the inner door to the ship's main hatch, closing it behind him before he opened the outer door. He came back very quickly. "Come out," he said. "The air is good." So we trooped down the ramp and found ourselves in the shadow of the ship in a narrow gully between one rock face and another. It seemed to be a sort of hanging valley in a hill, a tiny runnel of flowing clear liquid threaded between rocks in the bottom of the dip, over a bed of silver-white sand and pebbles. Malcolm, the party's chemist, took a sample of the stream in a little specimen bottle to test it. Patty was so sleepy after the night before that she could hardly walk, and Father picked her up and carried her, nodding with drowsiness rather than leave her alone in the ship. She went in his arms, up the slope toward a gentle saddle between one side of the valley and the other, where all the others were walking. It was easy to walk, even up the slope. Patty felt light and easy to carry. So up we all went to the rim of the hollow and looked over. Before us lay a wide and gentle plain, sloping to the shores of a round, wide lake some miles across. Beyond the lake, a very high mountain with perfectly symmetrical slopes rose into the sky, topped with snow. A mirror image of the lovely mountain hung inverted in the lake, quite still, for the surface was like glass, perfectly unruffled by even the slightest impulse of the air. The surface of the plain was grey and silver, shining like marcasite in places, in others with a pewter sheen. To the left and right of the plain, on gentle hills, were wide sweeps of woodland, with quite recognizable and normal trees, except that the leaves upon them were not green but shades of red and shining, like the blaze of an amazing autumn. It was very beautiful, and perfectly silent, and perfectly still. The children ran forward onto the open expanse of land before them, shouting, and at once we were limping, crying and hopping back. We were still wearing the soft ship slippers we had been given to keep down the noise in the corridors of the spacecraft, and the pretty grey grass and flowers had cut through the thin leather at once and cut our feet. The guide ordered the crate of boots to be brought from the store and unpacked. Someone fetched ointment and bandages. Meanwhile, we stooped and picked the sharp plants, which broke easily in our fingers when gathered. They seemed to be made of glass, sharp and shining like jewels. But as soon as we all had boots on, we could walk over them safely, for the growth was crushed beneath the soles, as fragile and as crunchy to walk on as the frost-stiffened grass of winter on earth. We all walked over the crisp and sparkling frost plain, down toward the shores of the lake. It took an hour to reach it. The lake shore was a wide silver beach made of soft bright sand, like grains of worn-down glass. And all the time we walked toward the lake, it did not move, or ruffle, even enough to shake the curtains of reflected mountain and reflected sky that hung in it. And though the air smelled good and sweet to breathe, it was windless, and as still as the air in a deep cave underground. Only the little rivulet that followed us across to the lake from the crag valley where the ship had lodged moved. It chuckled gently from stone to stone, and sparkled as brightly as the glass leaves and grass. When we got to the beach, Patty went to look where it joined the lake to see if it would make some splash or ripples for just a little way. But it seemed to slide beneath the surface at once, and made only the faintest ripple ring, quickly dying in the brilliant mirror of the lake. "I think we may be lucky," said the guide. "I think this place is good." People laughed, and some of the grown-ups kissed each other. The children ran to the edge of the lake and made it splash. Jason's mother ran along the beach, calling to the wading children not to drink from the lake until Malcolm had made sure it was water. Everyone was thirsty from walking, and the lake looked clear and good, but we all obediently drank from the flagons of recycled water from the ship. "Right," said the guide. "We shall begin the settlement program. And first we need to name the place we are about to build. The instructions suggest that the youngest person present should give the name. That can't include the real babies, obviously. Patty or Jason? Which is the youngest?" Jason's mother and Patty's father spoke together. "It is Patty, by a few days," said father. "Well, Patty, where are we?" "We are at Shine, on the first day," said Patty solemnly. "Good girl," said the guide. "This place then is Shine. And now we must all work, and fast, for we do not know how long the days are here, or what dangers there may be."
Well, it looked as if everything on this new planet was going to be just fine for human beings from Earth. The soil was rich, the water was fresh, and the air was good around Shine. But after a while, things didn't seem so good. It seemed there was a lot of glass in the soil, and the beans and the lettuce and the carrots all died after they sprouted, and the rabbits who ate the grass all died. All they had left to plant was the wheat, and if it failed, they had about a 2-year supply of food pills in the spaceship. After that, they had some special pills which would bring instant death rather than slow death by starvation. Every day the children explored. Jason and Patty became very good friends, and they made a lot of discoveries, especially the tree with the sweet sap. Soon everybody was eating the food from the candy trees. But the most interesting discovery was a place near the lake, a place the kids called Boulder Valley. Huge rocks were lying all over the valley, and they were fun to play on. But one day, when the kids were there playing, a very strange thing happened.
Again, it was the children who found it, or rather found that it was happening. They were all playing in Boulder Valley. Patty and Jason were in charge of some of the even smaller children, the ones who had been born on the journey. Jason's sister Mary, and Malcolm's smallest Bob, and some others. All the grown-ups were in a conference of some kind, and Sarah and Joe seemed to count as grown-ups now. The children were in Boulder Valley, playing at climbing up the boulders and sliding off them again. Patty had a picnic, the usual iron rations picnic, in a grey tin from the ship's stores, and she was spreading it out for them on a cloth on the grass. Square grey hard biscuits, and grey-brown chocolate, and pink pasty guava jam. Patty liked playing fathers, It made her feel grown up. She saw Mary some way off and called her back. "Come and slide on this stone, Mary. We're just ready to eat." "I'm not sliding on that one," Mary said. "It pushed me off." "Oh, rubbish, Mary. Come on." "It did. It did," said Mary, coming back all the same when she saw the picnic. "I climbed up it, and it shrugged itself and made me fall off." Jason looked at it with interest, biting a biscuit. "Its shape looks different from before," he said. So Patty stared at it too. And while they were all looking, a crack appeared in the stone. It just tore open a little way, and there was an inside, like a piece of wet grey velvet. "I don't like it here," wailed Mary. "Let's go home." The stone tore some more, tore and moved. Not that it moved on the ground, but it moved inside, like a person in a sleeping bag shifting arms or legs. "Let's go now," said Patty. They left the picnic just where it was and began to go, scrambling up the sloping side of Boulder Valley toward the path to Shine. But as they went, all the stones in the valley were moving. They were heaving and shuddering and tearing open. A very big one lay close to the path home, and as they got near, they saw it had opened right down the middle, and a draggled, silver-grey wing with dark purple blotches on it lay like a tablecloth across the path. "We'll be all right," said Patty very bravely, "if we just run. When I say now, now!" And they ran. They ran round the edge of the spread wing and reached the top of the slope and stopped for breath and looked back. All over the bowl of the valley the stones were tearing and crumpling and showing soft furry wings. On the farther side of the valley, one giant moth had got all the way out and was half fluttering, half crawling on the ground, fanning its wings in the sun. They were losing the damp look and turning a bright dusty silver marked with crimson. Very near them, just below where they stood, the moth whose wing had lain in their way was fighting his body free of the crumbling stone. He was thick grey and furry, but he had front arms and a round head like a person, and he was actually looking at them with dark, red, vacant, lidless eyes. He made Patty feel very frightened and sick, and she screamed and took Mary's hand and ran away. They all ran, screaming and crying into the grown-ups' meeting, and some of the men took guns, and all the people ran back up the hill toward Boulder Valley. But Patty sat and thought. Now that she wasn't looking at them anymore, she wasn't sick at the moth people, even when she remembered she had climbed all over them. She went and asked Jason's mother, who was trying to calm the babies down. "What do moths eat? Will they eat us?"
Nobody knew what these moth creatures would be like. Would they be vicious, or would they be friendly? You can find out just by reading The Green Book by Jill Peyton Walsh. And I have another book about trouble on another planet, a book by Alfred Sloat, The Trouble on Janus. Weird and wonderful things usually happen in space travel stories, so have fun reading.